I'm Corbett Wall with DVAuction, here with your feeder flash for Wednesday, November the 20th, brought to you in part by Specialty Risk Insurance, helping cattlemen manage price risk one calf at a time. Scan the QR code for a one-stop shop for all your crop and livestock insurance needs. For more information, go to specialtyriskinsuranceagency.com. Hard to figure. They came out with the cattle on feed estimates for this month's report, which will be coming out on Friday afternoon. But the numbers don't really jibe. If you look at it's hard to figure. The total number of cattle and calves at the beginning of this year at the inventory report said that we are down 1.9% cattle and calves total inventory from a year ago. Now that same report 5 years ago said we were down 7.9%. We're down that much from then. So if we're that much lighter on cattle, how can we have the same number of cattle on feed as we did last year, as we did 5 years ago? That is hard to figure. So you wonder what's going on here. How can we have the same number of cattle on feed when we got so much lighter numbers? Well, most of it can be justified by the one obvious thing is we're keeping cattle on feed longer and we're taking them to heavier weights. Now you think, well, you know, how does that work? Well, 5 years ago we didn't really do that much of this. This all came upon us about the time during COVID. If you remember, when we got backed up on cattle, and then packers found out that they liked that better, having those giant carcasses that were grading so much better and higher in quality, and they found it easier to market them. And then knowing we were going into extremely tight numbers of cattle, they decided to put the carrot out in front of the industry and entice everyone to make cattle bigger. Took the discounts off. In some cases they were even offering premiums on heavy carcasses, and what happened? By gosh, we made them bigger, a lot bigger. And so you're keeping the cattle on feed longer. Well, I guess so. I guess we can justify a lot of that, but there's bound to be a lot of adjusting that's going to be done here. There's going to be revisions, and a lot of times nobody pays much attention to the revisions, and we just go on through life thinking that the numbers didn't figure up right. And that's probably what's going to happen here. But at some point they're going to come back and revise those numbers. But I'm not sure. It might be official, like we used to always say when I was with the government. It might not be right, but by God, it's official. And I think that's the case here. We've got some official numbers here that are hard to figure, and it doesn't really line up all that well. But we've got one thing that I know for sure, and I don't know the specifics, but we've got more winter forage than we have stocker cattle to turn out on it, and that is for sure. I mean, I can make some projections, and I did here just a few weeks ago. I told you that the pee-wee calves were going to get crazy high because we're going to have so much wheat and winter grazing, and of course that did happen. And like I said a few sessions ago, it wasn't a heck of a lot. A lot of us could do anything about it because we didn't have any of those pee-wee calves. But the people that do have pee-wee calves, I don't know, you must have ice water in your vein if you're keeping them and you're planning on selling them at some point, because they're bringing crazy high prices here, and it just continues all through this week. We've seen lots of calves bringing up to, well into the fours. We've even seen, I did see some light calves weighing in the low threes, bringing over $5 a pound. And so, it's getting pretty wild out there. I've got some pretty wild quotes to give you at the end of this report, like always. But, I'm traveling up here in actually Cottonwood Falls, Kansas. I'm actually at the Lark Inn. This is the house that my buddy Jimmy Craig, the king of the country cattle buyers, he stays in the Flint Hills whenever he's shipping cattle in the summertime. This is the house that he stays in, and I've been over here and visited him and been on several of his deliveries with him, and he loves this house, and it's a cool place. He was going to be here at Strong City, Kansas for the ESB talk that I gave on Tuesday night, but he was not feeling well, so wasn't able to make it. So I ended up staying in his house, which is kind of cool to stay in his house. But driving up here from the Texas Panhandle, I mean, it's just so wet and so beautiful, and all this winter forage is thick and unbelievably rank, and it's just everywhere. It's everywhere. I've traveled all over this country the last 3 weeks, all over south central part of the country, and it is just wet everywhere. You know, trying to describe it to you guys that maybe don't see it if you're way up in the northern plains or something like that. I want you to take a look at some of these pictures. These pictures right here were sent to me by Daniel Ferrino, or not Daniel Ferrino, Daniel Ferrari out of Foss, Oklahoma. And Daniel has shared different things with me about what his cattle have brought and things like this. But this is his dryland ryegrass. Look at this. Look at the handle on that little hammer there, and just look how it's buried in this thick grass. Unbelievable. It's like this all over Oklahoma, all over the Texas Panhandle, all over the Oklahoma Panhandle, all over Kansas. It's just like that. Now, some places don't have as good stand on their winter forage and straight up wheat pasture as that ryegrass there, but I mean, just look how thick that is. Now I want to show you another picture. If you went a little bit west, you saw some tremendous amounts of snow, and I told you there was areas over there in northeastern New Mexico that had a lot of snow. Well, it was also that way in the eastern edges of Colorado. My good friend Glenn Benjamin from Simla, Colorado, and that is just east of Castle Rock, Colorado. Look at this picture here. Now these are some cows that he had out away from the main part of the ranch there, and he just had those cows over there grazing, kind of holding those cows. Was not expecting this kind of snow, but he got between 3 and 4 foot of snow, and was very nervous, was not able to get to those cows for several days, but finally had a buddy that come over there with some snowmobiles, and they were able to blaze a trail with the snowmobiles out of that pasture and get them back over there close where he could get to them with some hay, because he could not reach those with his 4-wheel drive tractor. But you look at that picture, and that picture is super cool. If you look at those cows trailing out of there on snowmobile tracks to get out of that deep snow, but he was able to get them out of there. They were all okay. They were some shortbred cows. He's got them back up eating some hay around the home place there, and everything's going well for them. But that's the kind of moisture that we've got going on in the southern plains, guys. And your cattle on feed estimates, I want to give those to you for sure. This will be coming out Friday at 2 o'clock Central Time. But your November 1st inventories are estimated by your average of the analyst guess at 99.9% of the same report a year ago. So just like I said earlier, exactly the same, even though we've got so many fewer cattle. Placements in October are 103.3% of a year ago's report. And your marketings are very impressive, and they'll be right. They always are. It's your placements that they always miss. But marketings in October at 105.1. So be thinking about those numbers as that report comes out on Friday. Take a look at your board for Tuesday. December live cattle futures up big, up 247 with your closing market at 186.57. These are very pleasing futures prices here, guys, but everything's just been so bullish here, mostly because your stockers are so bullish, but also feeder cattle. And now that we're seeing some positive signs on our board, maybe the fed cattle will respond and be higher this week on a cash market. But February live cattle contracts up 202 at 188. Your back months were all up from $1.17 to up $1.55. Feeder cattle for November up 242 at 254 1/4. January up 250 at 252 smooth. Your back months were up 240 to up 262, with August now at 257.45. If you're thinking about LRPs, and you can get a hold of specialty risk insurance if you're interested in that, and I showed you how to scan that QR code there. But your LRP coverage quotes or prices for August now, if you've got some cattle you're going to turn out on grass and pull them off or sell them in August, you can protect yourself at 257 and change now. It's going to cost you $9 a hundred, but that's a long time off in the future there, and you got a lot of comfort level at that. But your April live cattle contracts, which everybody's buying for right now, sitting at 189.42, which doesn't sound high enough to justify these prices that they're giving for feeder cattle. But you got to remember cheap cost of gains and taking them to the big heavy weights, which may even go beyond April. You know that you can finally back them down into that kind of a price range. But your fat cattle trade brought to you by Legacy Beef Cooperative. Not much to talk about on a direct basis. We did see 1,000 head sell in Nebraska at 290 dressed on Tuesday, and that's really all we've seen on a direct basis out of your 5-area feeding region negotiated cash. Now, we did have the market maker in Stockman's Livestock Market in Yankton, South Dakota, your best fat cattle auction in the nation, at 1,300 in overnight. 2,000 head for the fat cattle auction there in Yankton, South Dakota. Conventional fat cattle sold from 180 and a half to 190, roughly $1 to $2 higher. And program cattle, few drug free, but mostly non-implanted, and that would be the bulk of the supply there at Yankton. They sell from 185 to 195, so a little bit better fat cattle auction than what we had a week ago, and that could be signs for a better direct market than we had a week ago. Box beef cutout values higher again on the choice, but dropping off a bunch on select, but we don't have that many select carcasses anymore, so maybe that doesn't make much difference. How about choice cuts up $1.51 on top of the big gains we saw on Monday at 308.79, and your selects down 354. That's a big drop off for selects at 271.91. Choice select spread widening to almost $37, and that's pretty wide. How about your slaughter up through the first 2 days of the week? Both disappointing from a year ago, but impressive from last week. But your average dressed steer carcass weight, your estimated daily livestock slaughter through the first 2 days of this week, 244,000. That's 11,000 more than last week at this time, 11,000 less than the same week a year ago. Talk about what else is going on. Performance Livestock Analytics, designed by cattle producers, for cattle producers. Performance Livestock Analytics is owned by its original co-founders, both from rural Osage, Iowa. And that is farmer feeding country right there, guys. These guys know what they were doing when they started this and when they started designing this software. It helps you simplify feeding, performance, and health data recording. For more information, go to performancelivestockanalytics.com. Let's talk about your feeder cattle market, your real-time index on DVAuction late in the day on Tuesday after all your feeder cattle auctions had closed, sitting at 254.44. That was up another 42 cents. Saw a huge gain on Monday and up again on Tuesday at 42 cents. And your latest CME cash feeder cattle index indeed saw the big jump that your RTI saw on Monday, but it didn't come out till the next day at 253.68. It's a good precursor to that, guys. You got to pay attention to it. Talk about a big sale they're going to have here on Wednesday. Creston Livestock Market in Creston, Iowa is having their big all-vaccinated calf and yearling sale. They've got a lot of their best consignments in there. Got several loads of yearlings and a lot of big strings of calves. Check them out at DVAuction.com, guys. Talk about your big sales on Tuesday. Ozarks Regional Stockyard in West Plains, Missouri had 2,200 head in, which is a pretty good run whenever they're starting rifle deer season there in Missouri, people kind of have a one-track mind, but they were able to think clear enough to get their calves into the sale barn when the market's spiking. But 2,200 head through the ring, and 900 more on their in-house video they do with help from DVAuction. But the feeder cattle that sold through the ring in West Plains sold steady to $4 higher. Steer calves were $10 to $15 higher, with spots as much as $20 higher on those peewee calves we've been talking about. Heifer calves sold $5 to $10 higher. Stick out quote, and this is South Central Missouri, guys. Ozarks Regional Stockyard in West Plains sold 90 steer calves, weighed 522, and bring $325 a hundred. Talk about some individual quotes from all around the circuit. How about Stockman's Livestock Exchange West Barn in Dickinson, North Dakota? Sold 70 steers, weighed 532 at $345. Thought that was impressive. How about Philip the Giant, Philip Livestock Auction in Philip, South Dakota? They sell 94 steers, weigh 617 at $316.50. Wow. How about Beaver County Stockyards in Beaver, Oklahoma? I told you it's even wet in the Oklahoma Panhandle, guys, and if it's wet there, it is wet everywhere. But impressive calf quote out of Beaver. 59 steer calves, weighed 471, bring 386. And that's about a top quote for some heavy 4-weight steer calves there, guys. But the most impressive quote that I saw anywhere on Tuesday, your Macrocin No BS top quote for the day, come out of our friends at Unionville Livestock Market. We promote them one day a week, every week, guys, along with Creston Livestock Market. But Unionville had their special on Tuesday. Indeed had the Rock and R cattle there from Lucerne, Missouri. That's one of their premier consignments. They had 5 loads of yearling steers there. They averaged 859 pounds with an average price per load of $267.65. But the most impressive quote was one load of those steers weighed 873 and bring $269.10. And that's your feeder flash for Wednesday.